So we're flying along now, and we've got her bodice, we've got some sleeves, we've even got some decoration hanging from her sleeves with these sort of wings. Let's now focus on the lower end of her body and start to build in her skirt. And this time I'm not going to be focusing in on little details, I'll just walk through the process, and we're pretty much going to be using a lot of the things and tools that we've been using so far, building patterns using elastic lines, internal lines, editing curves, just to give us the main shape. So before we build the skirt, we're going to give her sort of a belt which is going to attach the bodice and the skirt. But just like we did before, I'm going to select all the patterns. Let's drop that down so you can see what I'm doing. Right click, and we can either freeze or deactivate these. I'm just going to deactivate them again so that they're not being simulated at the moment. So we can just focus on this one area. So let's create a belt. So looking at the bodice, we want a belt to match up with these lower areas here. So again, just like we did before, we could just select these, copy, paste, move them down, and then we can straighten these points off. Like so, just so that these edges will line up with these. And obviously we don't want a belt that long, so let's move this up, maybe make it 1 grid spacing. Now with this central part and with the rear part, when we create the skirt we want it to be one panel rather than two made up of like 4, or in this case 6 different panels. So what we could do is maybe do something different. Let's delete one side there and let's move this one across, just so we've got one belt area here. And we know that this one edge needs to be sewn to these two here. So what we could do is add in another point just by right clicking, uniform split, and that's going to add in an extra point there. So now we can sew that to there and this to there. That will sew to there nicely, and we could do the same with the back of the skirt. So let's delete this and let's double that up. One more, and again select our point tool, right click, uniform split into 2, click OK. So now that will line up. Now this is where it starts to get tricky. This will line up with this one and this will sew to this one. So let's just sync that up. Now because we duplicated the model, let's just activate these. That's it. And then we'll reset those back to their default position. Now this we know needs to go to the back. So let's move that there. As you can see, because we duplicated it, it's also copied those sewing lines as well. Now let's flip horizontally. Let's make sure it's pretty much in the middle. Now these edge parts, again, we will select those, move these so that they're at her side, and then just roughly rotate them around. So these are already sewn up, so we can now do the others. This goes to there, and that wraps right round to here. And we know these want to sew onto the body, so up to there, up to there, and then just sewing these like so. And then we synchronize that, and we can see the belt there flickering around at the back. But don't worry about that, because when we add in the skirt, that's going to add a gravity onto this and pull this simulation down. So that's a very basic belt. So now from that we could start to build in the panels of the skirt. And again, we could just select these and copy and paste them and use them as our starting point. We can also delete these extra points here. Delete point, because this is just going to sew straight onto here. So let's do that now. So up to there, so up to there, up to there, up to there. Sort of like that. Again, if I simulate that, that will all attach nicely, but we don't really want to see it like that just yet. So let's go back. Again, let's reposition this around the back, and we're going to flip it horizontally. And just the same with this, let's rotate that round. I'm just doing this quickly just to get the shapes in there. So if we simulate that, so there we can just see it basically, but obviously the skirt is too short. But what we can do now is, while we've got that in there being simulated, we can select these lower edges and we can pull that right down. And there we've got the basics of the skirt. So let's reset that. So now we want to maybe select these and move those down. Let's simulate that again. So there we've got a nice tight skirt, but obviously we don't want our skirt to be tight. We want it to flare out at the bottom. We want a bit more character to it. And just like I said, we've got the belt there, and adding in that skirt has dragged that down. So let's fix some of these issues. So the back of the skirt is probably not long enough, and neither is the front, to be honest. We probably want some detailing around here, some creases and folds. So let's make some space over here. Let's move some of these panels around. So with the main skirt, let's just make that wider at those ends, and then maybe 2 more grid spaces at the bottom so that it flares out like that. Let's move this one back over. And we could do the same with the back of the skirt. Maybe make this twice as long, maybe a bit longer even. And again, add a bit of a flare, the same as the front. 2 points there, we'll just move that over like so. So let's reset that, simulate that this time. And that's looking much better. We've got that flare coming out at the bottom. Up at the top, we've got some creasing and folds up there. But we can also go in and add a bit more shape to the skirt using our curves. So with that done, it's probably a good time for us to just leave this video here, and we'll continue working on the skirt in the next video.